A football stadium today is one of the most protected places in American life. Players wear plastic armor from head to shin. A referee will stop an entire game because a helmet grazed another helmet at the wrong angle. Commentators talk about player safety like it's a religion. None of that sounds like the origin story of a violent sport. But it is. Because a little more than 100 years ago, American football was not a protected game. It was one of the deadliest amateur sports in the country. And the padded, whistle-happy version we watch now exists only because the original version was killing people. To understand how that happened, you have to go back to a muddy field in New Jersey in 1869, where Rutgers and Princeton played something that barely resembled football at all. It looked closer to soccer, with a round ball and mobs of students kicking it toward a goal. There were no forward passes, no quarterbacks, no huddles, just chaos with a scoreboard. Over the next decade, that chaos slowly absorbed rules from English rugby, and one Yale player, Walter Camp, started reshaping it into something more American. He shrank the teams, he replaced the scrum with a clean line of scrimmage, he invented downs, so a team had to actually earn the right to keep the ball instead of just wrestling for it forever. This sounds like the moment football became civilized. It was, actually, the opposite. Because once the game had structure, coaches used that structure to build something far more brutal than the organized mess it replaced. Teams began lining up in tight, armored clusters and sprinting into the defense as a single mass of bodies, shoulder to shoulder, aimed at one point on the line. It was called the flying wedge. Picture a human battering ram running at full speed into another human battering ram, over and over for 60 minutes, with players wearing nothing but leather caps and cloth padding. The bodies underneath that pile were not built for it. By 1905, the death toll from football had become a national scandal. Newspapers reported roughly 18 deaths that year alone from broken necks, crushed skulls, and internal injuries, mostly among high school and college players. Some universities began quietly discussing whether to ban the sport entirely. Harvard's president openly called for it to be abolished, and the President of the United States had a personal stake in the outcome because his own son was a freshman on the Harvard team and had already been hurt on the field. That president was Theodore Roosevelt, a man who spent his entire public life glorifying toughness and physical risk. He did not want to kill football, he wanted to save it from itself. So, in the fall of 1905, Roosevelt summoned representatives from the country's football powers to the White House and told them bluntly to fix the game or lose it. That meeting set off months of negotiation, and by January 1906, delegates from 62 colleges gathered in New York to rewrite the rulebook. The changes were not cosmetic. They banned the flying wedge outright. They created a neutral zone between the two lines, so players could no longer build up a full head of steam before contact. And, almost as an experiment, they legalized something the old rugby-style game had never allowed: throwing the ball forward. At first, almost nobody trusted it. The pass came loaded with penalties, and coaches treated it as a last resort. The following season, Harvard beat Yale 8-0, and Yale finished the entire year without allowing a single point. That is not a passing offense. That is still mostly controlled violence with slightly better paperwork. But the death toll dropped. From 19 fatalities the year before reform down to 11 the year after it. And once the forward pass was on the books, it could not be uninvented. Coaches spent the next 2 decades slowly discovering that a football thrown through open space was more dangerous to a defense and safer for a body than a football carried into a wall of shoulders. That single rule, forced into existence by a body count, is the reason modern football looks the way it does. Every spread offense, every deep pass, every quarterback standing in a clean pocket exists because a smashing, close-quarters game was made to open up one legislated inch at a time. So, look at the stadium again. The padding, the penalty flags, the slow-motion replays checking for illegal contact. None of it is decoration. It is the visible scar tissue of a sport that once had to be legally rebuilt to stop burying its own players. The game did not get safer because someone made it gentler. It got safer because for one violent season, it was actually built to kill.